you take it in? No. Go to NHV guest. Did you type in capital I? Did he spell with a capital I?
It's not that.
Can I please have your attention?
Do you want a hard copy?
Thank you. I just want to take a minute to remind everyone of the mask mandate. We need to wear our masks, we need to keep them on, and we need to have them, and we will go to recess unless we have 100% compliance. They need to be worn properly, which means they also need to be over your noses. Thank you. I'd like to call to order the North Hunterdon-Voorhees Regional High School District Board of Ed meeting. Today is Tuesday, October 26, 2021. We are now called to order. In accordance with the requirements of the Open Public Meeting Act, NJSA 10-4-6, adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by submission of notice of the time, date, location, or instructions for remote access to the Hunterdon Democrat and the Star Ledger on January 21st, 2021, and subsequently re-advertised on July 22nd, 2021. Notice, and to the extent known, the agenda of this meeting has been posted at the North Hunterdon High School and Voorhees High School and provided to the municipal clerks of Bethlehem Township, California Borough, Town of Clinton, Clinton Township, Franklin Township, Glen Gardner Borough, Hampton Borough, Highbridge Borough, Lebanon Township, Tewksbury Township, and Union Township, as well as other interested parties, and posted on the district website. Fire exits are located in the direction indicated. I believe they're all behind us and some are to the sides. Please move in an orderly and calm fashion to the nearest smoke-free exit if alerted to fire. At this time, I please ask you to silence all your cell phones. Please be advised that in accordance with Executive Order 251, face masks must be worn indoors and in all school buildings. This order applies to all after-school activities, events, and meetings held inside, including Board of Ed meetings. We ask your cooperation to remain masked throughout the meeting so the board can conduct its business in an orderly fashion. In accordance with Board Policy 0161, the board may call a recess or adjourn this meeting at any point in time if necessary, such as non-compliance with the mask requirement. At this time, I would like the board secretary to administer the oath of office to our newly appointed board member, Glenn Parbanish, as he is representing Union Township.
Okay, please repeat after me. I state your name. Do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey, and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same and to the governments established in the United States and in this state under the authority of the people, so help me God. I state your name. Do solemnly swear or affirm that I possess the qualifications prescribed by law for the office of member of a Board of Education, that I am not disqualified as a voter pursuant to revised statute 19:4-1, or disqualified due to a conviction of a crime or offense, and that I will faithfully, impartially, and justly perform all of the duties of that office according to the best of my ability, so help me God.
Katie, can we have a roll call?
Yes. Ms. Bonomi,
Present.
Mr. Chapman,
Present.
Ms. Crisologo, present. Mr. Farbanish, Ms. Hintz, present. Ms. Hoffman, here. Mr. Kirchberger,
Here.
Ms. McLaughlin,
Here.
Mr. Mueller,
Here.
Ms. Delino,
Here.
Mr. Straight,
Here.
and Ms. Fiato.
Here.
Thank you.
You all rise for the flag salute.
Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, I'd like to introduce our new, this year's student board representatives and alternatives. From North Hunterdon, we have Vanessa Moline. Thank you. Elizabeth Castro has also been appointed as her alternative. And then for Voorhees High School, we have Bethany Kaduyu and Emily Woodruff has been appointed as her alternative.
Good evening, my name is Vanessa Moline. I'm a senior here at North Hunterdon High School. I'm a part of several of the National Honor Societies, one of them being Thespian National Honor Society. I'm a part of several notable clubs here, one of them being the Interact Executive Committee Board and Relay for Life. I feel very strongly about community concerns and the progress of the student body here at North Hunterdon High School and find it very beneficial to have a voice and know how the student body feels in all regards to the good and bad progress of student activities.
Hi, I'm Bethany Kaduyu. I'm a senior at Voorhees High School. I'm a competitive cheerleader. I'm involved in class council, National Honor Society, mock trial, and No Place for Hate. The reason I'm so excited to be part of this board is because I believe in the power of words and a student's voice, and I want to be someone who amplifies the student body as best of my abilities.
Thank you, ladies. Can I have a call for a motion and a second to approve agenda items 6.1 and 6.2?
Motion.
Rob and Kim? Does anyone have any questions regarding the minutes for October 22nd and September 28th? Or 24th? No, October 24th, September 28th.
August.
Oh, my goodness, I'm sorry. August 24th or September 28th minutes.
I have a question. In September's meeting, at one point, there was a question about, it wasn't discussed, so it wouldn't have been in the minutes, so I'm not sure if I put it now or in old business. The board was asked, a board member asked for legal counsel, and it was stated to in front of the public that the board broke policy, and we was determined that it was determined that we did not break policy. So are we allowed to add that to the minutes, or do we put it in under old business this month to clarify the statement that the board did not break policy?
I think your comment tonight clarifies this issue. I don't know if you want to ask for the minutes to be amended, but I think you're certainly clarifying within a record that issue.
Okay, so it'll be on tonight's meeting minutes. Great, thank you.
Anyone else?
Katie, we need a voice vote. Okay, I'm going to call for a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions?
Thank you.
Now it's time for the school administrator's report, please.
Okay, good evening. Can everybody hear me okay? We have new microphones and we're trying to figure them out. So, first I'd like to report out on our harassment, intimidation, and bullying for the month. We have one case that was a founded case that the board will be voting on tonight, and there is one case of unfounded HIB that the board will be hearing about for the first time tonight. So can I have a motion to accept the one case that was presented at the August board meeting?
So moved.
Motion.
Deb?
Second.
Deb and Brian. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And any abstentions? Okay, so in addition to those, I have some things I'd like to go over. First of all, I want to thank all of our employees, our substitutes, our contracted workers for complying with the Governor's Executive Order 253 to provide vaccination status. We started testing last week for those individuals that are unvaccinated or did not provide their vaccination status, and we appreciate everyone's cooperation for a smooth process. Close to 84% of our people that are employed or working in our district are fully vaccinated. I'd like to send a special thanks out to the school nurses. They did go above and beyond to make sure the testing protocols were laid out properly and efficiently, and I thank them. Our high schools last week administered the Psat test to all of the 9th through 11th graders. Actually, that was on October 13th. That went well. This week is Spirit Week at both of our schools, as many of you know, leading up to the 46th annual Milk Can football game, which we played at Voorhees High School this year. This Friday, October 29th at 7:15 p.m. So I hope to see many of you out there. I'd also like to take an opportunity to address the public on topics that I consider to be one of the utmost importance. The safety and security of our students is the most important responsibility of every school administrator and faculty member in our district. The administration will continue to do everything in our power to support all of our employees, including our certified library media specialists, so that they can perform their duties to enrich and educate our students. Thank you, but we have a long meeting, so a little applause I will appreciate next time. As has been said many times before, our schools are no place for hatred, racism, or bias of any nature that would cause physical or emotional harm to any of our students. Students should be able to come to school every day confident they will be treated with respect and dignity, regardless of their race, ethnicity, religion, gender, sexual orientation, disabilities, or gender identity. I want to especially note, during a time when certain students feel marginalized, that we support our LGBTQAI+ community during this and at all times. Every student counts, and we will continue to work to make sure that every student feels respected and welcomed in our schools. In regards to the comments made at the previous board meeting, I want the public to know that we do have policies and regulations in place that outline the procedure to submit a complaint about a book or material in our schools. A complaint should be submitted to the principal, who will convene a committee to review the book referenced in the complaint or the material. The committee will then make a recommendation to the board. Since the last board meeting, a complaint was filed and a committee is currently reviewing the books mentioned in the complaint, and a final recommendation has not yet been made. But when it is, it will be submitted to this board event for consideration. Thank you very much.
Good evening, everyone.
I just wanted to also take a moment to thank everyone who has reached out to the board this past month. I want you to know that we received your emails, sometimes dozens in a day. And and that I wanted to thank you for taking the time to express your support for our LGBTQAI+ community, our librarians, and the board processes. I can assure you that I have personally read each and every email, and that I appreciate the time that you took, and I look forward to we as a board, when we could, as a board, can provide you with a response. I want to remind everyone that our next board meeting is scheduled for November 24th or 23rd. We hope that this will be in the district office. If not, it will be here. And at this time, I'd like to have our committees report out with their meeting summaries. We did not have a community relations meeting this month, but I'm going to start with curriculum.
Okay. The committee.
Rachel, do you need the mic?
I think, can you hear me?
These are all.
It's on, right? Okay. The curriculum committee met last week. We discussed the action items. There are 7 this evening on the agenda. We discussed tuition contracts for full-time students who attend Hunterdon County Vocational School District. We discussed out-of-district placements, home instruction, additions to the home instruction provider list, additions to the professional consultants list, student tuition agreements, and overnight field trips. We also looked at some preliminary data for our Strong Start assessment. This year, the state, as a result of the pandemic, had a standardized test that all high school students in New Jersey took. There will be a presentation in November time period at our meeting to overview the results of those preliminary assessments. As a result of the pandemic, we have seen some data where there has been some regression in the area of math. So we have been talking as a committee on student supports that can be put into place to increase our scores. We also know our math teachers are working very hard to review the curriculum from last year to get the students up to speed on the particular topics that they might need additional assistance in. We also gave our Linkit benchmark assessment, which is a district assessment that we use to track progress. We give that in the fall, the winter, and the spring. So we have our preliminary results that we discussed, and the curriculum committee will be tracking those results throughout the year to look at how our students are progressing. And that is my report.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions for Rachel? All right, facilities, finance, and transportation.
Yes, thank you, Rachel. Our committee met last Monday evening. And it was a relatively short meeting. However, we continued to discuss the potential referendum for November 2022. These projects are still under consideration. We look for more feedback from board members on that list. You'll see an action item on tonight's agenda. Our architect is submitting to the Department of Education to establish that the projects that we are considering are eligible for aid. Additionally, you'll see on tonight's agenda some capital work for the Voorhees tennis courts. It's been an ongoing problem with cracking. So the solution which we're voting upon and our committee is in favor of is it's a thin coating. It's a warranty for 25 years, and as long as we continue to make some maintenance work to it every 5 years, but similar to what was done here at North Hunterdon. You also see a LEAP a grant resolution for LEAP supporting the Bloomsbury School in its feasibility study. This was before us once before. It's a continuation of that. Other than that, very little business. I'll entertain any other questions. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Negotiations committee did not meet this month. Shelley, personnel?
Personnel met on October 20th at 6:30 p.m. virtually. Committee members were in attendance, as well as Jessica Viato and Assistant Superintendent Rich Burgesses. We discussed the personnel portion of the agenda. We also reviewed the job description of the Treasurer of School Monies. We are not recommending any changes to that job description at this time. And then we also reviewed and discussed a proposal for for a boys volleyball team at North Hunterdon and Voorhees High Schools. And more discussions are needed, and we are hoping that we will take action on that next month, and the consensus of the committee was all in favor of that idea.
Does anybody have any questions for Shelley? Hunterdon County Vocational School Liaison, was there any meetings this month? Oh, I'm sorry, Rob. Where you go? Policy.
Thanks, Jess. The policy committee met on October 18th. All members were in attendance. And we discussed several agenda items, including a request by Brian Chapman to discuss any policy-related changes to our COVID-19 posture and the district response and metrics. And so we had a kind of extended discussion on that topic, and the committee agreed that our metrics and policies that govern decisions on COVID mitigation are covered in policy 1648 already, which is the restart and recovery plan. And there was a general consensus that the board members and school administrators are not the medical experts themselves. And so as such, when we are not subject to state mandates, we would recommend, and the administration recommends, reverting to the prior decision making, which was at recommendations of the Hunterdon County Health Department in conjunction with the Hunterdon Medical Center and in collaboration with the administrations of the other high schools in Hunterdon County. So the way that those decisions were reached prior to state mandates were based on the recommendations and requirements of the local health department, input from Hunterdon Medical Center, and making decisions that were in conjunction with those other high schools. So that we don't believe there's a policy change that's recommended to the board. The County Board of Health will be consulted on current conditions in the event that EO 251 and 253 are lifted. The other topic that we talked about at length was policy 2530, which is about resource materials. And it was determined that this policy was revised in 2019 and still appropriate, and no changes are recommended to 2530. As was already mentioned, we talked about the related policy 9130, which is the policy that governs the process for public disputes or public concerns, public complaints and grievances against resource materials. And as was previously mentioned, that committee has been formed. And so we found that the policies as revised in 2019 are adequate for dealing with resources and grievances against those resources. And then a related, not related, but another item that came up was a recommendation that we review as part of this meeting, policy 0167, which we've heard a little bit about today already, which is about public participation in board meetings. And so for the convenience of all, I will read policy 0167 so that everyone has a common understanding. And this is public participation in board meetings. And the Board of Education recognizes the value of public comment on educational issues and the importance of allowing members of the public to express themselves on school matters of community interest. In order to permit fair and orderly expression of such comment, the board shall set aside a portion of every regularly scheduled meeting of the board, the length of the portion to be determined by the board, for public comment on any school or school district issue that a member of the public feels may be of concern to the residents of the school district. Public participation shall be governed by the following rules. A participant must be recognized by the presiding officer and must preface comments by an announcement of their name, municipality, residence, and group affiliation if applicable. Each statement by a participant shall be limited to 3 minutes duration unless waived by the presiding officer. and no participant may speak more than once on the same topic until all others who wish to speak on that topic have been heard. All statements, questions, or inquiries shall be directed to the presiding officer, and any questions or inquiries directed by a participant to another board member shall be redirected to the presiding officer, who shall determine if such statement, question, or inquiry shall be addressed by the presiding officer on behalf of the board or by an individual board member. The presiding officer may interrupt, warn, and or terminate a participant's statement, question, or inquiry when it is too lengthy. Interrupt and or warn a participant when the statement, question, or inquiry is abusive, obscene, or may be defamatory. Request any person leave the meeting when that person does not observe reasonable decorum. Request the assistance of law enforcement officers in the removal of a disorderly person when that person prevents or disrupts a meeting with an act that obstructs or interferes with the meeting. Call for a recess or an adjournment to another time when the lack of public decorum interferes with the orderly conduct of the meeting, and waive those rules when necessary for the protection of privacy or to maintain an orderly operation of the board meeting. Thank you all in advance for your adherence to this policy during our upcoming public comment section. And that is all we covered in the policy meeting.
It was a big meeting. Does anyone have any
Questions for Rob? Sarah, do you have a question?
Good. Just want to go back and circle back to the delegates and the liaisons that we have in place for the Hunterdon County Vocational School, the New Jersey School Boards Association, the Hunterdon County School Boards Association, or the Hunterdon County Educational Services Commission. I know we did have a meeting last month. I know, Rachel, you were in attendance. Deb and Ryan were both in attendance. Rachel, you are the delegate, though, right? Do you want to report out a little bit on that?
Sure. The New Jersey School Boards Association has a school board for each county in the state of New Jersey, and we meet regularly to discuss topics related to school boards. At our last meeting, the topic was a presentation called Community and Public Relations, and we actually discussed a lot of the things that Mr. Kirchberger just referred to, which was how to make board meetings effective for both the board and the public. We had some discussions and ideas about how boards can be more transparent to the public by educating the public. Many people that come forward to discuss an issue aren't quite sure of the board process. So there are ways that the board can communicate to the public to make them understand a little bit more about how the process works, such as Mr. Kirchberger just relaying the policy on public comment. And we also discussed ways that school boards could continue to reach out to community so that the board is aware of community concerns. And there were some ideas shared. There was a community relations spokesperson for some districts in southern New Jersey who shared a lot of creative ideas that we will continue as a board to discuss.
Anybody have any questions for Rachel? All right. John, did you want to speak before we start public comment?
Yes, good evening and welcome all again. We're going to be moving now to our opportunity for public comment. I was going to read policy 0167, which has already been read, so I'm not going to read it again, and you're welcome. I will note that this First Amendment right to be heard is sacred. It's recognized by this board. This board's going to honor that tonight for folks who want to step up, but it is not unlimited. It's often said that the rights of one end when the rights of another begin. Policy 0167 that Mr. Kirchberger read speaks to that. The board's not going to permit defamatory comment. The board is not going to permit abusive or obscene comment. The board's not going to permit comment which does not observe decorum. And there are steps that the board takes in the event that that happens. We've got law enforcement support here tonight because of a certain heightened level of public interest in comments already on some issues. And if comment violates the rules, our president may stop that comment or ask for assistance. Public comment also is not Q&A, it's comment. You have a voice, we celebrate that voice and your opportunity to be heard. I also want to note, our assistant superintendent noted that there is a policy to file a complaint about instructional materials, similar to the complaint complaints, the concerns raised at the last meeting. The formal process has been initiated. It's ongoing. It'd be premature for the board to comment on it or to take some action tonight, so it's not going to happen. So if anybody came out to hear what's going to happen about a book, you're not going to hear what's going to happen about a book tonight. And that's because the process is ongoing. That said, again, you have an opportunity to be heard. Speakers will have 3 minutes each. Our period is typically 30 minutes, but I understand that the presiding officer may extend that if we run out of time in light of the volume of folks who are here. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Now is the time for the opportunity for public comment. During this portion of the meeting, the public is invited to address the school board with questions or comments.
Please line up along the wall if you'd like to make comment.
Testing, testing. Can you hear me?
No, trying.
Can you hear that? Doesn't sound like it. Yeah, we can't hear that, Marin.
Marin, your mic's not. I think so. Yep, she can turn on.
It looks like I can get through, but I can't. Roger my notes.
I just wanted to know what was back there. Yeah. Yep. You guys can all hear me, right? Testing? Perfect. Okay. Okay. I will.
Yeah, we got it. We got it.
I'll handle it in 3 minutes.
You know, like you're on stage, they typically set up like monitors so you can hear what.
Okay, yeah. I'll be fine, I promise.
All right, read it. Just read it.
Okay.
All right. You still have to read your part.
I do. Before we can start public comment, I still need to address public comment. During this portion of the meeting, the public is invited to address the board with questions or comments. The public is requested to sign the register provided for this purpose and to state their name, municipality of residence, group affiliation if applicable, and to direct your comments to the board president. While all comments will be considered and a response will be forthcoming if and when appropriate, school board members will not respond to the speakers at the time of their appearance. The public comment period will be a maximum of 30 minutes in length unless there are unusual circumstances. Those appearing will be allocated 3 minutes to speak, and I really do ask that we comply with that since there are a number of people here waiting to speak. And no one will be permitted to speak twice until those that have not yet had an opportunity to speak have had a turn.
Let's.
And I pushed the button when I. Hello, my name is Evelyn Alvarez Flores. I have 2 children in our school system, a sophomore and a senior in high school. My oldest is 2 years out of the district as well. I thank you, board, for allowing us the opportunity to come before you today and speak on behalf of our children and advocate for our children. As somebody who was actually born in the country that was touched by both socialism and communism, do you know who bans books? Countries, regimes that find it dangerous to have access to these books. We're in 2021. This is the United States of America. Okay? I became a citizen when I was 19 years old because I believed what this country had to offer. And one of those amazing things that this country has to offer is access to literature. No censorship, access to full literature. And let's be honest, if we're really talking about morality, then I think that many of you have targeted these 4 LGBTQ plus books in question would have been outraged, up in arms about all the other books that are in our children's libraries that are far more sexually explicit, as well as have mentions of everything from violence to rape to inappropriate behavior between adults and children. Okay, so I'm going to be so kind as to share some of these books with you guys, because my children did me the solid of going into our school library at Voorhees and checking these books out for me. So I present to you Speak. Who here has read this book? Okay? This book is about a child that was sexually assaulted.
Yeah. So,
Ma'am,
sorry.
ma'am, hold on. And I apologize for interrupting, okay? Very articulate. And we appreciate your speech.
Sure.
Public comment, folks, is not public comment to the public.
Okay,
It's
fair
public
enough.
comment directed to the
Fair
board,
enough.
okay?
I'll continue
Please,
directing
please.
at you. It's okay.
Please.
Thank you.
Okay,
It's okay.
all right? So we're going to start
I
the clock
appreciate that.
again,
No,
right?
of
I
course.
paused it, okay? Please direct your comments to the board. Thank
Sure
you.
will. So
Thank you.
we have Speak. This is a book about a child that was sexually assaulted after a game, and she explicitly talks about her rape throughout the entire book. I will not read from this book because it's a giant trigger for myself as a childhood essay victim and a survivor. We have another one that is actually labeled as YA, young adult, and it have marked all the areas, which again I won't read here because they're sexually explicit, and I actually do care about what our children read. So, but what I will say that it explicitly describes a sexual encounter between a 19-year-old and another character that is said to be about 100 years old, because it's, whatever, YA fantasy. But the reality is we have several books in our library that are far more sexually explicit than a book that is going to help our children, our LGBTQ children, who, by the way, don't have the proper sex ed in our school system. Because if you think about it, every time they have sex ed, it's about heterosexual relationships. And as somebody who has worked in public health, as somebody who actually spent the time having to train pediatricians how to explain to their 9-year-old students and 9-year-old patients what protected sex actually looks like, because there was an outbreak of chlamydia in the Bronx in the late 2000s when I was working, I can tell you that access to proper sex ed is absolutely pertinent for our children. As somebody who has worked with HIV/AIDS plus patients, as somebody who has worked with children, again, that have STIs, we need to be able to talk to our children. And quite frankly, the books in question are just that. So our children should have access to these LGBTQ books.
Thank you.
And that's it.
I think it's projected out, so that's what
Hi, my name is Cynthia Reyes, Lebanon Township. We, the parents, have prepared a statement addressing the school, the board, the administration, community members in attendance, as well as all students at North Hunterdon and Voorhees High School. Last month, many parents spoke at the BOE meeting about library books with the content that is illegal to distribute to minors. Federal laws and New Jersey laws clearly define what obscene means. For example, a narrative that depicts sexual activity such as human genitals and state of sexual arousal, or any act of human masturbation or sexual intercourse. Examples were read and shown from the North Hunterdon-Voorhees library books that unquestionably qualify as obscene. Because North Hunterdon-Voorhees School District is knowingly distributing obscene materials to minors, law enforcement is involved, but that's not what I'm here to talk about. Parents raised an issue with the book's obscene material. The laws of our state and our nation define what is legal and what is not. Obscenity doesn't discriminate based on one's sexual orientation, or giving obscene material to minors is illegal and dangerous, and that's why parents who were concerned spoke up. After extensive research by several parents, we have not found the single library book with an extreme, obscene, heterosexual content. We haven't found any books that normalize images of heterosexual 10-year-old giving another 10-year-old oral sex, images depicting an adult male masturbating an underage girl, or anything that's playing with, I won't even say what it is, putting strap-ons and letting a guy ejaculate in your mouth from a heterosexual perspective. If there are any heterosexual books that contain child pornography or other obscene and inappropriate materials for minors, please definitely bring them forward so they could be removed too. Within one day of last month's meeting, the people who support criminally obscene material in school fabricated an absolute lie to gain support and cover up for what they were caught doing. They lied to you students. They lied to you parents. They even lied to the media. They told students, quote, "These parents want to ban books with LGBTQ plus characters or ideas. These parents only care because they are LGBTQ books," end quote. Every bit of that is false. And when they lied, they turned innocent LGBTQ students into victims. Their lie was calculated and intentional to deflect attention away from what they've done. They claimed LGBTQ discrimination and tugged at your heartstrings to get the community support. But parents were never concerned about sexual orientation in the books. The lie was used to get your support to defend their illegal actions. These students deserve an apology. They deserve an apology for being used as human shields for these adult crimes. They deserve an apology for being roped into an issue that they were never a part of. They deserve an apology for making them feel like victims. And I'm sorry, I just have two more things to say. LGBT students, we are here to support you. We're here to support LGBTQ students. Support and protect every student of North Huntington. Every student deserves to be protected from obscene material. Every school,
Cynthia, I have to ask you, it is 3 minutes.
Okay, and again,
Please.
we are sorry for what they have done to you.
Cynthia.
Good evening, distinguished members of the Board of Education. My name is Jordan Jobert, and I'm a senior here at North Hunterdon High School. As many of you may notice, a bunch of my peers and I are wearing shirts that are purple. They say ignorant youth on them as a reaction to what was I posted on social media about this Board of Education, not expressing any opinion, and I had a parent, against my wishes and against my permission, post my name and what I posted on social media, calling me an ignorant youth and reacting and saying hurtful things, completely honestly. So I feel a great connection to the topic at hand, and I feel that it's only fair that, I'm sorry, I'm very nervous.
Take your time.
At North Hunterdon High School, all freshmen are required to take Teen Pep, which is a sexual education course taught by juniors. It's given very explicit content on safe sex, visuals, skits, and other things. As someone who is LGBT myself, I found that this content was not helpful. I looked to books and I found lots of resources. I was very lucky. I went to the library, I was able to find books, and that's just something that I feel everyone should have access to. And if it's between two consenting people and it's safe, I don't think there's any shame behind it. I just find that this access to books was very helpful to me, and I just wanted to speak my opinion. Thank you.
Eric Luquinko from Franklin Township has 2 students here at North Hunterdon. 287 students. That is how many currently enrolled North Hunterdon and Voorhees students will be sexually abused or assaulted before they walk across the graduation stage. These statistics come directly from the National Center for Victims of Crime. I'm speaking as a North parent and as a director for a nonprofit organization that is solely dedicated to supporting child victims of sexual abuse. 1 in 5 females, 1 in 20 males. That is 12% of our children who have been or will be victims of sexual assault before they turn 18. A school should be a safe place for children and teens. I want to address ways that the district's actions are affecting student survivors, maybe in ways it doesn't realize. The library is stocked with all sorts of books, ebooks, videos that are sexual in content. Some of this is healthy because it is educational. Educational sexual material should be available in schools because the purpose of school is to educate. But what about the library book that normalizes oral sex between two 10-year-olds? I quote, "I was in 4th grade. It was no big deal. It wasn't terrible." 12% of the student body is or will be sexual assault victims, and there is no warning label on that book about its sexual abuse content. Or how about the contest that used Dunkin' Donuts gift cards to incentivize students to read about a freshman getting raped by a senior and then becoming ostracized in school? North's daily announcement said libraries banned it for having a political viewpoint and discussing sexual violence. No, the book was banned from school libraries because of its inappropriate sexual content. Schools banned it to protect students from the triggers it might cause for victims of sexual assault. But when I asked the librarian and the vice principal and the principal why this book was highlighted, I had no response. Zero. The school isn't just triggering victims. The school is literally creating an environment where sexual abuse thrives. Abusers do this exact same thing. They gradually normalize sexual content where it isn't natural. Child and teen sexual abuse affects all genders, all sexualities, all economic statuses, children from all political viewpoints. We have to work together to protect our children and our children from the harm that non-educational sexual exposure leads to. When we send our kids to school, we expect them to receive an education. We demand that the school immediately stop exposing our children to unnecessary, uneducational, sexual content and protect these deserving students from unnecessary harm and triggers. Please remember, sexual assault victims when decisions are made. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jax Carey. I am a sophomore at Voorhees High School. I am here today because I saw the last Board of Education meeting, and because of what I have seen now. I am a student, and watching the last meeting brought up many difficult emotions for me as a member of the LGBTQIA community, and as a Colombian American. I had something prepared today that I was going to say, but now I changed it. So, I watched the last Board of Education meeting, and that made me cry. Because yes, I did feel targeted. I did feel that who I was not going to be okay. And so I am now going to read you what I have previously written about what I felt. Many people want to ban books, specifically books that include minority characters that are part of the LGBTQIA community or are people of color. I disagree with banning a book just because it has gay or trans characters or because it has a difficult topic. In previous meeting, it was told we do not talk about our differences because it will divide us. I believe our differences make us stronger, they unite us. We come together as a community, we get over our problems, and we compromise. These books give teens like me hope that there are others like us and we are not alone. We are not alone. Sorry, I'm not supposed to address people here. I am not alone today, standing here. I feel supported, but I also feel like there are others here who do not want to see me thrive. These books are not being forced upon anyone. Usually these books are sought after by these minority groups represented in the book. These books are not causing others to hate. It's in fact the opposite. They are teaching love and compassion and courage, and that it's okay to be who you are. For those saying they are protecting the children by banning these books, they are wrong. I am the child. My friends are the child. The peers of my school are the children of these schools. We benefit from these books. We are seen and we are heard. I would like to read you the district goals from the 2021-2022 school year, which the Board of Education had to approve. Quote, number 3, provide the necessary supports to address and assist students and staff with mental health, overall wellness, and emotional needs. Number 4, continue to address inherent bias and racism, focusing on equity and inclusion to provide all students with the opportunities and knowledge to make reflective decisions. End quote. If it is chosen to ban these books, you are neglecting the mental health of these students of the district and choosing to ignore and erase the stories of these books and these students. So often, our voices have been silenced, and I am here to say, I am here, I am queer, and I am going to speak for what I believe in.
Hi, my name is Max Moore, and I'm a queer student at Voorhees. Last month, I watched adults all over the country come to school Board of Ed meetings during Banned Books Week. They suggested the banning of certain books from our library, all of them containing queer, anti-racist, and anti-classist themes. The reasoning for these suggested bans was the themes presented were too serious or that the books contained pornographic content. Aside from the fact that the majority of the books on the list have no sexual content, there are books with nudity or sex scenes. Some of these books include Lawn Boy by Jay Vision and Fun Home by Alison Bechtel. Lawn Boy is a book about racism and classism and has 4 pages of sexual content out of a 320-page book. The passage read at last month's meeting was taken completely out of context and misconstrued to seem like the entire theme of the book. The sexual content is not there to corrupt children or normalize pedophilia. It's there to add to an important narrative that criticizes racism, classism, and pedophilia. Fun Home is a graphic novel memoir that follows a woman exploring her sexual identity while struggling to connect to her gay father. About halfway through the book, she learns that her father has shown pedophilic behavior. This is a memoir, a retelling of true events. Simply leaving her father's pedophilic behavior out would compromise the integrity of the story itself. The 1-page lesbian sex scene is also integral to the story. It's not there to serve as pornography. They're once again there to add to the story and build the narrative. Time and time again, the history and stories of minorities and marginalized communities have been erased, with similar excuses of them being too inappropriate or obscene. So many queer, indigenous, black, and other minority stories have been erased and forgotten. Why have books like Brave New World in libraries for years without question, when a book entitled Two Boys Kissing comes into question, even when it has no sexual content? I'm of course not saying Brave New World should be taken out. I'm saying that these suggested bans are not out of an attempt to protect children from pornographic content. It's an attempt to shield children from certain ideals that people do not agree with. In the U.S. Supreme Court case of Island Trees School District v. Pico, it was ruled that no book can be taken out of a school library simply for the fact that the school dislikes the book. One of the main concerns of parents at last month's meeting was the corruption of children, that queerness will be forced upon them in school curriculum. I'm here to say definitively that queer media and stories did not make me transgender. Queer media... Queer media and transgender stories helped me and so many other teens realize that what we are is okay, that it is not shameful or dirty or inherently sinful. We are not here to start a fight or argue or spread any kind of ill intention. We are here to speak on behalf of those who would be affected by the banning of the books, my peers, my fellow students, and my friends. The continuation of this cycle poses real harm to countless minority communities. Thank you for your time.
Hello, my name is Oliver Foley. I'm a student at Voorhees High School.
Sorry, we're having trouble hearing you.
Oh, you are? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Wait for me.
Thank you.
Is that better? Okay, sorry. Hello, I'm Oliver Foley. I'm a student at Voorhees High School. So I had something planned, but I'm probably going to go off a bit because of what I've already heard. But so as someone who is a part of the LGBTQ community, I feel upset with what has happened in the recent board meeting and a bit of upset as to what happened in this board meeting. So when I was younger, I was never really taught much about those who we consider quote unquote different. I learned on my own from queer media and other just like resources that weren't necessarily from parental figures. Most of it was not from school libraries, and when I started at Voorhees, I was really, really happy to see the representation in this library. When I watched the last video, I was definitely shocked at the movement to take away these books. By taking away knowledge from adolescents who want to learn, you limit their growth. Questioning the world, questioning yourself is human nature. Providing people knowledge about their interests helps them learn about themselves and the people around them. Finding things you like, building relationships on said interests, and so much more contribute to a healthy human mind. I saw some parents talk about how topics such as these should be taught at home, and they would prefer to teach it themselves or not teach it at all. And I totally agree that it is up to the parents' responsibility to teach your children about more difficult social subjects, or not even social, just difficult subjects in general. However, we still should have those resources in the library to for students to utilize if they want to learn more about a certain subject. School is a place of learning, so why should we remove that and take that away from the student body?
No way. Okay.
Can I have your attention, please? We will have to end public comment and recess if there is outbursts.
Okay. All right. Oliver, we stopped the clock. The floor is yours again. Please continue.
Pretty much all. Sorry.
Sorry?
I forgot where your mic's at. Please, we need the mask on.
All right. Thank you. Please.
Hello, members of the board. My name is Beckett Thomas. I am a student at Voorhees High School, and I'm here to address the attempted book ban against books such as This Book is Gay by Juno Dawson, Fun Home by Alison Bechdel, and other such books. When I heard that these stories might be banned, I immediately set out to try to find these books in libraries and bookstores, anywhere I could look, so that I could see exactly why they were being banned. And from what I discovered, a lot of these stories have a single aspect in common. Every single one of them has a central idea of homosexuality or LGBTQ ideals. As a bisexual teenager, I've dealt with my fair share of homophobic discrimination. I've been called a number of slurs and derogatory names. I've been excluded and bullied and treated differently, usually to my detriment. I've even lost friends just because I was different. So when I saw that there were parents that were attempting to ban these and other such books, I was heartbroken and I was outraged. High school is a time for self-discovery, not just to find someone's interests in future careers, but also to find their own identity. And North Hunterdon and Voorhees are public schools, meaning that they should be for everyone, regardless of religion, ethnicity, family background, sexual orientation, gender identity, or anything that sets them apart from others. It's bad enough that members of the LGBTQ community are hardly represented in books and movies, but now there are parents that wish to take away what little representation we do have. Let me take the time to remind everyone that banning these books because they talk about and have a centralized focus on LGBTQ ideals, this is way too similar to what happened during World War II, and forgive me if I step a little across the line, but this is something I believe that needs to be said. During World War II, it was a time when Nazi soldiers burnt books, any and all books that didn't agree or did not align with the Nazi and ideals of Adolf Hitler. Are we really at a point where parents are becoming far too similar to the ruthless soldiers of World War II Germany? Let's not forget that in last month's board meeting, out of everyone that spoke in favor of the book ban, not a single one of them was a student. Every single one was a parent. And after reviewing these parents' comments, they claim that these types of books and others are and should be classified as pornography. After reading some of these books and conferring with others who read these books, this applies to none of them. The term pornography is a Greek term which, defined by Merriam-Webster, is any sort of pictures or media depicting erotic behavior intended to cause sexual excitement or arousal. This does not apply to any of these books in question. Keep in mind that any two of these books, they're nonfiction. They're meant to be a story that tells real life stories.
Zach, I
Thank you.
gotta ask you to take it.
You want to do another 30? Okay. All right, so folks, we have come to the end of the first 30 minutes. We're going to extend it by another 30 minutes, okay? Okay, go ahead.
Good evening. I hope your day's been well. My name is Jude Jebb, and I'm a 15-year-old gay transgender sophomore at North Hunterdon High School, living in Annandale, and tonight I'd like to share my opinion on the potential book ban. Imagine you're in a diner and you've just ordered a cake. Now, cake usually isn't on the menu. Usually it's pie. Cherry pie, lemon pie, blueberry pie, all types of pie. It's not that you particularly dislike pie, but you want cake tonight. The waiter comes through, and as the plate is about to lower towards you, someone from the next table says, "Waiter, cancel that cake." Of course, you're surprised. How does this person have the audacity to cancel your cake? The waiter, however, leaves with your cake. You ask this stranger why they wanted your cake taken, and they look at you as if you're unreasonable. "I didn't want any cake," they say to you. You're confused yet again. They didn't have to eat the cake. It was for you, not them. You chose to have the cake, and they chose not to. Why does their choice have to affect yours? Now, I'm sure we all think that this story is clear. They shouldn't have canceled your cake, and the waiter should not have taken it away. Let's imagine this again. You're in a library, and you've just chosen a book about two men in love. There are plenty of books about men and women in love, but today, you're more interested in reading about two men in love or two women. As you're about to check the book out and leave to read, someone says, "Excuse me, don't let them read that." The library has its controversial books taken away, stopping you from reading about it. You didn't want to read about heterosexual couples, you wanted to read about homosexual couples. You didn't want to eat any pie, you wanted to have some cake. It's your personal choice not to have any cake. It's your personal choice not to read about LGBTQ+ people or sexual scenes. This doesn't mean that everyone has to avoid it with you. Just because we're children does not mean that we don't have opinions. We want to eat our cake, eat our pie, and have choices. Some are concerned that having sexually explicit books in schools makes it unsafe for their child. However, this overlooks the simple fact that no one is mandated to read the book. None of the books mentioned are centered around sex. Are centered around LGBTQ+ teenagers figuring out who they are and growing up. It's inevitable that there will be books that you dislike. Acknowledge it and move on. Please listen to... Please listen to the opinions of students and let us keep our books. Thank you for your time.
I want to remind you again about the outburst.
My name is Mr. DaCosta. I'm a freshman here at North from Lebanon. Many issues were brought up by concerned parents of my peers about certain books in the North Hunterdon School Library, ranging from child pornography to political agendas. These parents believe that these books, Lawn Boy by Jonathan Evison, Fun Home by Alison Bechtel, This Book is Gay by Juno Dawson, and Gender Queer by Maya Kobabe have no place in a high school setting. I would first like to bring up the concerns about the book Lawn Boy. According to some parents, the graphic passages in Lawn Boy should be classified as child pornography and should be banned, and anyone that distributed the book should be arrested. They specifically brought up Section 2C24-4 of the New Jersey Code of Criminal Justice as proof of the illegality of this book. However, this law states that it only applies to content about actual kids or images or videos depicting child exploitation. Lawn Boy only contains semi-graphic written details about acts between fictional characters, so this law shouldn't even apply. Another issue was that these books were, and I quote, being jammed down our children's throats in the name of peace and equality and equity. The parent then listed off over 15 books, using this as proof of the oversaturation of LGBTQ+ books. First of all, there are over 20,000 physical books in the library, with hundreds more online. These books also don't appear on the list of books that students are required to read for classes, making all these books completely optional for students that want to read them. I should also bring up the petition. As some of you may or may not know, there was a petition sent around North over the last week, asking how students felt about the removal of these books. As of writing this, the petition has over 200 signatures from students at North, and that number is growing every day. Many students at North support keeping these books in our library, and I believe that we should learn how students feel before making a decision that impacts them. Some of the students had strong feelings about this, and here are their responses. LGBTQ+ books have really helped me come to terms with my own identity and sexuality, and have helped me accept myself. I encourage anyone that is on the fence about this issue, makes a vote to keep these books, as they can truly help a student who is in a difficult place in their life. Books like Genderqueer and This Book is Gay are so important. When I was still in the closet, reading books with LGBTQ+ protagonists made me feel understood and express what I wasn't able to articulate. Taking books about the LGBTQ+ community away from students has the potential to be detrimental to their mental health and journey of self-discovery. They keep saying that school is no longer safe for their child, but where were they when it wasn't safe for us? The First Amendment states that not even a government should have the right to prohibit the free exercise thereof or abridging the freedom of speech or the press. Since when are books that lead children on a journey of self-discovery not allowed? Since when are books rated for ages 13 and up that talk about real-life issues banned for high school students? That is the question I'm asking today. What do some parents, let alone any of us, have in saying what students can choose to read?
Board members, excuse me, I'm Steve Sinoway, a resident of Union Township. I want to read into the record the contents of a letter my wife and I sent to all board members, the superintendent, the assistant superintendent, and the principal of North Hunterdon High School. We are writing with serious concerns about what transpired at the last district school board meeting on September 28, 2021. We witnessed via video vitriolic attacks by some community members against the North Hunterdon High School school librarian, as well as individual board members for their support of the library's annual Banned Book Week program. The community members who spoke displayed ignorance and prejudice against the rights of all LGBTQ+ students to read materials that may reflect their own experiences, despite the fact that these materials are available nationwide in public school libraries. A few years ago, when there was a movement to ban the book Fun Home, which was talked about tonight, from the NHHS library, a book that was a finalist in the National Book Critics Circle Awards, we were in the Board of Ed meeting room next door at NHHS, when then NHHS Voorhees High School students, as they did tonight, spoke eloquently and movingly about what access to this coming-of-age book meant to them, to learn that they were not alone in their quest for understanding themselves. Schools should provide an environment to open minds, not to enable ignorance, prejudice, and the feeling of hate. Our children are constantly exposed to their classmates' opinions on social media and the internet. Unless you homeschool your child, this is the real world we live in. We cannot insulate our children forever from diversity. Our school libraries and librarians can, should, and do serve as a source of learning. This is 2021, not 1951. Finally, we speak as parents of two recent NHHS graduates, which gives us a different perspective, with whom we had open discussions on diversity and racism. We did not ban our children from reading controversial books, but rather encouraged them to read them and to speak with us if they felt confused or uncertain about what certain books were about. And we still have these discussions to this day. They both have a diverse group of friends, both our children have a diverse group of friends for which we are thankful and proud.
Steve. Okay.
This is a multicultural, multi-ethnic, multiracial world
No, it's not.
our children are growing up in. Let's embrace it and not be afraid of it.
Short. Hello, my name is Joy LaBelle. I'm a resident of Pittstown in Union Township. I want to thank all the Board of Ed members for volunteering your time. I'm a professional volunteer, and I know there's occasions when you feel it's thankless. More than just 2.5 years ago, I stood before you regarding unacceptable potential policy changes to number 2530. And I'm submitting copies of both my 2019 and my 2021 remarks to enter in tonight's minutes. It's disappointing that we're here again discussing the possible review or removal of books not appreciated by some of the community. I believe that they're coming from a position of fear of the unknown, fear of the different, fear of anything outside their imagined social norm. Marie Curie once said that nothing in life is to be feared, it is only to be understood. Now is the time to understand more so that we may fear less, end of quote. To fear less. Isn't that wonderful? To come to understand each other. That's bliss. Through education, we acquire knowledge, skills, values, beliefs, habits, and personal development. We come to an understanding when we reach conclusions through reasoning, information, and awareness of other people's feelings. Maybe we wouldn't have problems with all the sexuality, whether it's hetero, homo, or otherwise, if there was a light shown on it. And we were taught this early on, so you could be empowered to not be abused and not accept unacceptable treatment. Communication here leads to community, that is, to our understanding, our emotional connection, and our mutual valuing. The Human Rights Watch organization says that students' rights include education, personal security, freedom from discrimination, access to information, free expression, association, and privacy. Why are we fearful of anything different? Or LGBTQ in this case, with the books being reviewed. I hope the review committee has people on it that can reflect my opinion and not just a staffed opinion. The Academy of Arts has several suggestions making LGBTQ students feel valued. They are, but not limited to, creating a student organization or club. Check one for North. We've got the Gay Straight Alliance. They ask why these topics should be included in the curriculum. In the curriculum. The books that are being reviewed are independent reading, independent study. Nobody's being forced to read them any more than the Bible in the library or Adolf Hitler's Mein Kampf. All those books are available, and it's up to the student to take it. Why wouldn't we include sexuality in all the topics of curriculum? Alexander the Great was gay. Hatshepsut was a female pharaoh dressed as a man. That's our history topics. What about Alan Turing, who broke the code for the Nazi Enigma machine and saved tens of thousands of lives in our math or comp sci people? What about the genius inventor Leonardo da Vinci and the educator astronaut Sally Ride for science? Yes, I said Sally Ride. She was a partner for 27 years with another female.
Joy.
Me reading a book about Sally Ride doesn't make me an astronaut or queer any more than a queer student reading a book about straight makes them straight.
All right. Hi, my name is Noella Whitney. If you could not tell by my leather jacket and flannel, I am a huge lesbian. I'm a Highbridge native. I was raised to put family first, a God-fearing Catholic, graduated Voorhees in 2011, continued on to one of the top 3 art schools in the United States in Baltimore, have lived and worked for many years in Japan.
as a teacher of elementary, middle, and high school kids, and I am a multi-award-winning comic book illustrator and writer. Maya Kobabe, the creator of Genderqueer, and Alison Bechtel, the creator of Fun Home, both works which have been named in this issue, are my professional peers. If you are of the opinion that these books are disgusting, have you ever talked to the people who made them? Have you ever asked what a gay, lesbian, bisexual, trans, queer person has thought about them before seeming them unfit? What impact these works have had on how they view themselves and how they give us a way to help articulate who we are. I am one of those people. If I had a book that showed me an LGBTQIA person as a full human when I was in high school, maybe I would have had the courage to talk to my parents about my attraction towards girls, which started when I was a freshman in high school. If I had the words to talk about what I felt, maybe it could have been revealed to them in a way that didn't severely emotionally scar all of us my senior year at Voorhees. Did you know they immediately threw me in therapy after they found out? Did you know I despise them? Did you know I've spent the last 10 years repairing our relationship? Did you know that I dreaded going home? Did you know that I still don't fully trust them? Did you know that I'm still traumatized and I still feel it in my throat and I still feel my throat seized with fear when I talk about it, like now? What a messed up thing for someone, a child, to get a trophy for having agony inflicted on them by someone who was willfully unkind when the child was scared. I would never want that for my own children. My best award-winning comics are entirely born of that single awful morning, my mother who swears she loves me screaming at me, and all the tears and hard conversations after, because I will never get any other kind of closure. I make my stories so others do not have to go through that sort of pain ever again. I pay my words forward to the next generation so that they may have the words and the courage to be themselves. Many readers of mine have told me personally to my face how deeply my stories and characters have affected them, how it scratched an itch they never even knew they had. Kids will be kids, curious, enthusiastic, scared, the whole unfiltered gamut of human emotion. Sexuality and gender identity are parts of them that you cannot rip out of them, no matter how hard you may try.
Hello, my name is Abigail Fisher, and I am a senior at Voorhees High School. That's a hard act to follow. You don't have to burn books to destroy a culture. You just have to get people to stop reading them. Ray Bradbury said this in many interviews about his hit novel, Fahrenheit 451. The classic provides a glimpse into a world where all books are burned, the reasoning being that they are more trouble than they're worth. Ironically, Fahrenheit 451 has been banned in several school systems, a fact I learned during Banned Book Week at Voorhees. The same week, I learned that a concerned parent said that 2 books, Lawn Boy by Jonathan Evison and Genderqueer by Maya Kobabe, should be removed from the library. Naturally, as president of the book club and member of the National English Honor Society, this shocked me. I couldn't believe that someone would think it proper to remove the choice of reading these books from all students simply because they thought it improper for nearly adults to have them available to read. It didn't surprise me that these books dealt with race, sexuality, gender, and economic disparity. These topics are often a source of discomfort and therefore avoided in literature for children. However, we, the students of Voorhees and North Hunterdon, are not children. We are young adults who deserve the right to choose what we read. It is in reading and discussing uncomfortable topics that we learn to form our own opinions, search for our own answers, and address our own biases. These processes make us more socially, emotionally, and academically intelligent.
from this would become more competent adults, as it is impossible to fully engage in a democratic society without the ability to form one's own opinions based on facts and reason. The entire purpose of school is to prepare us for life, and preventing students from engaging with the difficult topics shown in these books hinders that preparation. Ultimately, the request to ban these books ignores the everyday life of the students in the North Hunterdon-Voorhees School District. We are constantly exposed to these topics in and out of school, and therefore need to be prepared to discuss them in an intelligent way. We are not children, we are young adults. Allowing us the chance to discuss these difficult topics and form healthy opinions on them in a safe environment is an opportunity that should not be taken away. These books and the discussions attached to them are valuable assets not only to the school community, but to the county, the state, and the country as a whole. Information is more valuable than any opinion on it, as it allows for the formation of new ideas, and therefore, no book is more trouble than it's worth. Thank you for your time.
My name is Hope Kaufman. I live in Tewksbury Township. Before I start, I just think we should all give a big round of applause to this amazing Board of Education. I don't think anybody here needs to be reminded that these are volunteers, and they chose to be here and to listen to us, and that is a huge deal. In the precedent-setting case of PICO, Justice William Brennan, writing for the plurality, reasoned that the First Amendment right to express ideas must be supported by an implied right to receive information and ideas. And I quote, "Students may not be regarded as closed-circuit recipients of only that which the state chooses to communicate. School officials cannot suppress expressions of feeling with which they do not wish to contend. The First Amendment defines certain critical rights and responsibilities of participants in the educational process. It both protects the freedom of speech, thought, and inquiry, and requires respect for the right of others to do the same. It requires schools to resort to more speech, not enforced silence, in seeking to resolve our differences. These differences are why we are here tonight. The pioneer of modern American censorship, Anthony Comstock, founded the New York Society for the Suppression of Vice in 1872. He started a movement that would go on to ban Chaucer's Canterbury Tales, the Arabian Nights, and Aristophanes' Lysistrata. Authors whose work were subsequently censored under the Comstock Law include Ernest Hemingway, James Joyce, F. Scott Fitzgerald, Victor Hugo, D.H. Lawrence, John Steinbeck, Eugene O'Neill, and many others. When citizens ask schools to censor materials, schools must balance their First Amendment duties against other concerns, such as maintaining the integrity of the educational program, meeting state educational requirements, respecting the judgments of professional staff, and addressing deeply held beliefs in students and members of the community. The Supreme Court has repeatedly recognized two core principles. Schools have broad power to decide what and how to teach. Second, the decisions that are most vulnerable to legal challenge are those that are motivated by hostility to an unpopular or controversial idea, or by the desire to force acceptance of a particular viewpoint. As the Supreme Court stated in its 2021 Mahoney decision, schools have a strong interest in protecting unpopular expression, in exposing students to a wide range of views, and in giving students the opportunity to discuss those views. So the question in front of us is how to distinguish censorship from selection. Schools make decisions all the time about which books and materials to include or exclude from the curriculum. Hence, they are not violating the First Amendment every time they cross a book off a reading list. However, they could be acting unconstitutionally if they decide to remove a book solely because of hostility to the ideas it contains. I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Steve Halderson. I'm in my 16th year as a math teacher at North Hunterdon, and I currently serve as the North Hunterdon-Voorhees Education Association president. The members of the NHVEA work hard to support all our students, no matter their identity, orientation, political belief, race, religion, or family structure. We stand by the principle the uniqueness of all students must be celebrated, not demeaned. To all students who are here tonight to respectfully voice your opinions and concerns, we see you, support you, and are particularly proud of all who are brave enough to speak up for yourselves. We appreciate the statements made by the Board of Education, the Assistant Superintendent tonight. However, we have been disappointed and discouraged by their silence during the months since their microphone was used to attack and persecute specific members of our education community, especially our librarian, Martha Hickson. I am honored to work alongside Martha every day. She is someone who has dedicated nearly 2 decades of her life to the students and staff of North Hunterdon. Martha opens her doors to all students without hesitation and is eager to help any student to find a book to enjoy, a research article for an assignment, or just an accepting place to escape from the difficulties of teenage life. Ms. Hickson has generously aided me personally in the search for age-appropriate books for my own children to enjoy, thus helping to enrich their love of reading. In short, this district is full of individuals who are better and more supported readers, researchers, and learners because Martha is a member of this community. The educators of the North Hunterdon-Voorhees District embrace civil discourse on all issues related to our curriculum, including the books that sit on our library shelves. Unfortunately, some community members have decided the most effective way to be heard is by grandstanding at Board of Education meetings. Honestly, how can the students in this district be expected to learn how to respectfully disagree if the adults cannot do so themselves? Educators start every day at the school expecting there could be questions and criticisms, constructive or otherwise, but we deserve a chance to respond and defend ourselves. This is why there are policies and procedures in place for the community to leverage their concerns. However, this board and administration seemed content to allow community members to ignore proper channels and instead level personal attacks on individual educators at this microphone. This past month has inflicted an extreme physical and mental toll on the staff as we watch one of our colleagues be attacked without a response. Some community members may not care about how their statements and accusations impact the education of this community. However, our school board and administration should. Tonight I call on the Board of Education and Administration to do 3 things. Help the educators to provide a safe, civil, and respectful environment for all our students and community members. Stand up and defend this hardworking and dedicated staff. And enforce the posted policies for the community concerns so this microphone can never be used as a weapon again. Thank you for your time.
Hello, good evening. My name is Barbara Carr. I'm a member of the North Hunterdon faculty, and I'm here tonight to share a message from one of our former students, Joe Maimone, NHH class of 2012, now a senior clinical research coordinator in psychiatry at Harvard University. Joe writes, I'm horrified at the way that the library and these books are being attacked. I grew up as a closeted gay kid at North until I came out late in my junior year. Shortly after I came out, there were times that I would raise my hand in the front of a class and kids in the back of the room would shout, faggot, when I got called on. It was not easy to come out at North back then. I spoke at my graduation and I was genuinely afraid to do so for fear that I would be shamed while on stage. It scares me that these efforts to obviously discriminate against LGBTQ literature may be causing great damage for any out or closeted queer student in the district who are painfully paying attention to the ongoing vitriol and fear, the bitter hatred behind these discriminatory arguments as if they are being directed at them personally. I can only imagine how this public hatred may be inflaming the confidence of other teens who feel like their bullying against queer students is endorsed and acceptable. This act of public discrimination is detrimental to the mental health of the queer students who identify with these books. Public demonstration of prejudice like this can drive queer adolescents deep into dark internal states of shame and self-hatred that can lead to devastating depression, anxiety, non-suicidal self-injury like cutting and burning oneself, and not unrealistically, suicidal thinking. The problem, too, is that these effects are not limited to the North Hunterdon-Voorhees School District alone. These effects are known to affect queer people beyond the community who become aware of the discrimination via the media and word of mouth. Speaking from personal experience, from the perspective of a man who has now been out for over a decade and is very comfortable in his sexuality and very happily partnered, just last night after watching the recording of the late September board meeting, I had a nightmare that I was being pursued and beaten up by a group of men who are angry at me for being gay. I haven't had a dream like that in over 6 or 7 years. Seeing this hatred in the community I once called home, now living over 250 miles away in Boston, I'm very shaken that this hateful movement has taken hold. Thank you very much for listening to his words.
Hey, Jeff, it's coming up on an hour. What do you want to do? It's coming up on an hour. What do you want to do? Keep it sending?
I just want to let you know that we're coming up on an hour. I'm going to give us 15 more minutes, and then we're going to need to move forward with board business.
Hello. My name is Emma Ettinger, she, her pronouns, and I graduated from Voorhees High School, class of 2012. I want to respond to a concern raised during the last board meeting that the presence of particular queer coming out and coming of age stories in the district's libraries, quote, amounts to an effort to groom our kids to make them more willing to participate in the heinous acts described in these books, end quote. I want to assure the board that queer youth will be queer whether or not they are exposed to these novels and memoirs. They will be queer whether or not their identities are affirmed by these novels and memoirs. They will be queer whether or not they have the opportunity to read that others before them have shared in their feelings, their questions, their experiences. Queer youth will be queer whether or not they remain in the closet or know that there is a closet to come out of. What these books have the extraordinary power to do is to make queer youth feel less alone. And yes, although each of these books has been widely recommended for youth, some of them have what we might term adult content, four-letter words and sexual encounters. So do many other books we've judged appropriate for high school. Romeo and Juliet involves sex between minors and, like the rest of Shakespeare, is absolutely full of sexual jokes. But when we specifically identify queer experiences as being more adult, more inappropriate, more pornographic than their heteronormative counterparts, what we do is tell queer youth that they themselves are inappropriate, and that is a dangerous message to send. According to the Trevor Project's most recent national survey, 42% of surveyed LGBTQ+ youth in the United States had seriously considered or attempted suicide in the past year. More than 50% of trans and non-binary youth. Those with access to spaces affirming their gender and sexuality attempted suicide at significantly lower rates than their peers without such supports. And the books in a library can be an absolutely crucial space of acceptance. Queer youth who learn to shroud their sexuality in secrecy, who lack access to real-life or fictional models for what healthy and unhealthy relationships might look like, are more, not less likely to stumble into risky or emotionally compromising sexual encounters and relationships. The coming-of-age journeys portrayed in these books are messy. That's how coming-of-age works. And high schoolers of all sexualities are going to experiment with new experiences. When some of that experimentation and exploration happens vicariously, it doesn't encourage risky behavior. Rather, it offers a path for the journey to be a little bit less messy for the next generation. And that's a positive. Thank you for your time.
My name is Adriana Mamay. I am a resident of Reddington Township. I am a librarian, and I am representing the New Jersey Library Association this evening. An employee of your school district is receiving hate mail and threats from persons who disagree with some of the books at the North Hunterdon High School Library. School library media specialists serve as knowledge conduits to students and teachers. Often, it is the librarian that helps students to connect the dots between classroom learning and application. Through careful consideration and rigorous training, school library media specialists are equipped to make selection decisions for the purchase of library materials that represent a balance of the spectrum of knowledge. We strongly affirm the Library Bill of Rights. Our library workers are trained to uphold the tenets of intellectual freedom. We are guided by our ethical responsibilities as information providers. We provide access to books and other library resources for the interest, information, and enlightenment of all people within the communities that we serve. We do not exclude materials because of their origin, background, or the views of those contributing to their creation. We urge you, on behalf of the Executive Board and members of the New Jersey Library Association, to resist and denounce the censorship of information and knowledge. Threats made to school media library specialists in your district should not be condoned. Acquiescing to loud voices who desire to stifle opposing voices would only contribute to growing a dangerous society. Ultimately, it would be a major disservice to the students that we have been entrusted to guide. Thank you.
Just real quick, before you speak, I just wanted to know if anyone in the line had anything else to comment on other than the books. I just want to make sure that others' opinions are represented.
If people are willing to defer.
Is there anyone willing to defer your place in line so that a different opinion can be heard on a different topic?
She's up, Jess. She's up.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Okay?
Yep.
Okay.
All right.
I'm Mary Fran Daly. I'm from Clinton, New Jersey. Members of the board, thank you for your service to our community. The views expressed here are mine and do not represent any organization. My children will be students here in a few short years. The reason I am raising a family here is because in Hunterdon County, we protect our kids. I hope you have formed a fair committee in good faith to do just this, and I have heard that it is not. The stigma our LGBTQ students must cope with is not just absurd, it is dangerous. I've been a school teacher and school librarian in this county, and like most experienced educators, I can tell you there's nothing quite like burying a child. Suicide is the leading cause of death for LGBTQ teens. 1 in 3 attempts or complete suicide. Please decline the stigma that informs this horror. If someone is appalled at a library book, they can read something else. They can also make the choice that a public school education is not for their family or for their career. These recognized books have been carefully selected by an experienced, solid, and nationally recognized librarian. It is not the room that is a safe haven for our students. The library we voted for more than $9 million in part to renovate is not the safe space. The safe space here is Martha. It is the air and the affirmation that she breathes. Teachers like Martha keep our kids alive. I have known 3 of the 1 in 3. Condemning gay kids or gay books is a dangerous act of hatred. I will gladly speak up to keep that kind of blood off of my hands and off of all of ours. Please have no part in censoring these books, abandoning our kids, or harassing Mrs. Hickson. In Hunterdon County, that kind of hatred needs to stay at home behind closed doors. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Eliza Thompson. I live in Clinton and I am in 8th grade. I homeschool. I am currently deciding whether or not to come to North next year. I am here to support the North Hunterdon High School Library. LGBTQ+ books are important and valuable for all students, regardless of sexual orientation, because books are our strongest power against hate and homophobia. What better way to have someone's humanity realized than to live inside their head? I also want to thank you for supporting the mask mandate.
Hi, my name is Alexa Offenhauer, and I am a member of the North Hunterdon class of 1999. Thank you. I live in Clinton. That was my daughter you just heard from. I am also an assistant professor of English at Raritan Valley Community College, and I recently earned my doctorate in English education from Columbia University Teachers College. I'm here to defend the choices made by the high school librarians, choices that were recently called into question by some people in September at the Board of Ed meeting. Many of the books in the school library, as well as in the curriculum itself, deal with themes and topics that are difficult, mature, and potentially controversial. Yet the only themes being called out as harmful by these parents are those dealing with LGBTQ+ representation. In particular, one book called Lawn Boy, which I read immediately upon hearing the comments last month. As I listened to those excerpts read out loud by one of the parents, I became skeptical. One of the things that I warn my students against is cherry picking their quotes or presenting their quotes out of context. As an English professor at a community college, I well know the value of accessible, interesting, complex books for teens and young adult readers. They are hard to find and worth more than their weight in gold. Lawn Boy is, without a doubt, one such book, and I am thrilled it is available for students at the library. I fully support the North librarians and this and other book choices they have made. Thank you very much.
Sir, I'm so sorry, but we've extended, we're at 15.
Other than the books.
Jess.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Let him go. This will be the last speaker.
Thank you. So I'm John Drawl from Pittstown. I've got a student at North. I'm the one who sent you a letter in regard to how students were being controlled and being silenced at Friday night at football games specifically, right? And I'm sure you saw my exchanges with Dr. Cottrell, where all he did was hide behind New Jersey state policy and more New Jersey state policy, which in my opinion is what people do when they don't want to employ common sense and leadership to solve real problems. Free speech is not something that the administrators have a right to decide upon. As I stated in my exchanges, you and I might not like what some of the kids have to say, but in these United States, they have a right to say it, for sure. I am truly tired of watching administrators wave their fingers, cross their arms, and try to control everything these kids do when they come out on a Friday night on their own time to watch a football game with their peers. These administrators act as if they're holier than thou and shocked by the slightest infraction, a curse, a slight push, whatever it might be. Now, I don't want classless FU chants or anything like that. Of course I don't. But this administration has to find a better way to balance, just like the other schools that we play do on Friday nights. But to have the athletic director send letters to students and parents stating, and I quote, appropriate school discipline will be imposed by North Hunterdon and/or criminal charges will be filed by the Clinton Township Police if the staff members, and staff members only, on duty feel it is inappropriate, their judgment will be upheld. And one of those infractions stated is booing. Are you kidding me? Now, many parents and administrators want to hand out HIV reports like they're candy. My question is, who's bullying who? You have the audacity to treat students and citizens like this. Remember, this is the post-9/11 lockdown generation, the mask mandate generation. Haven't they suffered enough? Are they not allowed to get out on Friday night and blow off some steam? How much control do you need to satisfy the state? Where does the bullying end? That's what I want to know. Now, after my letter last week, I was very happy to see that no students left the game in handcuffs for booing. Thanks for that. Maybe it was because Dr. Cottrell didn't show up and the kids booed a few times and nobody was criminally charged. And you know what? Nobody's feelings got hurt from the booing. It was amazing. Bottom line here is that I'm finding more and more that administrators are serving as the sole arbiters of what is acceptable free speech. And at times, it's only the speech of those who they themselves deem as marginalized that are allowed to be heard, and that's unacceptable. I'm sorry, but free speech is free speech.
So,
Right.
that's what I was going to say. We can take all comments to email.
And we really have to move on with the board meeting. I really highly encourage you to send us an email. We do read them. And I appreciate you all coming out. Okay, I'm gonna have to ask you. I have to ask you to please stop.
Jess, we're gonna move you on. We're gonna allow it. We're gonna move.
I really do have to call an end. We do have to continue with board business. Thank you.
You want to take a 5-minute recess while these people leave?
Just indicate 5-minute recess.
I'm going to call a 5-minute recess.
Yeah, let's ask for a motion and a second on
Can I
that.
have a motion and a second to approve a 5-minute recess?
All in favor?
Aye.
Robin Debs?
Robin Deb.
Thank you. 5-minute recess.
Robin Deb.
All in favor? Everybody's in favor.
In favor? A second?
Yep. come out of recess.
Is that person okay?
Is there an issue?
All right. I'd like to call the meeting back to order. Can I remind everybody that we are still following the mask mandate? So if you're still within the theater, you could please put them on. And I'd like to call for a motion and a second to reconvene. So moved.
Second.
Okay.
Deb and Rob.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Okay. I'd like to call for a motion and a second to approve Resolution 102621-8 for the revision of the district textbook list. This requires a roll call majority vote.
Motion.
Second. Kim?
Robin Kim?
Rachel. Oh, Robin Rachel, sorry.
Robin Rachel. Ready for a roll call?
Yep.
Ms. Bonomi?
Yes.
Mr. Chapman?
Yes.
Ms. Crisologo? Mr. Farbanish? Ms. Hintz? Ms. Hoffman? Mr. Kirchberger?
Yes.
Ms. McLaughlin?
Yes.
Mr. Meelik?
Yes.
Ms. Salino?
Yes.
Mr. Straight?
Yep.
Ms. Fiato?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Can I call for a motion and a second to approve agenda items 13.1 through 15.13? So moved. Deb? Roger? Is that you? Second? Okay. Okay, does anybody have any questions? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstained? Okay.
Okay, motion carries.
Okay. Now it's time for any old or new business. Anyone have any old or new business they'd like to discuss? Kim?
New business. Just seeing the outpour in the community, maybe it would be helpful if we looked at our agenda items and maybe broke up speakers as to what they're going to be addressing the public with, so we could. I feel bad that there might have been someone in that public that we did not get to hear that was on a different topic. So maybe we need a mechanism for that.
More board meetings.
Yeah.
No,
So,
but-
so can I chime in? I hear what you're saying, and it's a really smart, important point. We've got to be really careful about prior restraint on speech, which is and being selective about topic. I know you're not trying to censor anyone.
No,
you
I'm
know.
just saying, can we go by agenda items that wasn't specifically on an agenda item?
Yeah, I think the only option there would be, and some districts do this, because the Open Public Meetings Act only requires one opportunity, so we have one opportunity. Some districts will have an opportunity on agenda items, and then another opportunity on anything.
Right.
So that's something that the board could consider.
We've done it, I know in past at my township, I think we still do, we have two sections.
Right.
One's in the beginning, agenda items, one's at the end of the meeting. I know Jessica, we extended 30 minutes and 15 minutes, but we could have had a 30-minute beginning, 30 at the end. Just a suggestion.
Yeah, I think tonight was a one-off.
No, I think we're even allowed to do that as like a one-off, right? If we know that there's a topic, we don't have to do it for every meeting, is that true?
You know, we certainly want to be consistent.
Got
And I think that the way it was extended, giving more than twice the allotment was a good plan. But there are different ways to handle this issue of public comment.
So Kim, just like in the past, in prior years, we we have had that 2 public speaking section agenda. And I think the reason we changed it, and it might have been my first or second year on the board, but we changed it relatively recently because I think we struggled regularly with people in the agenda-only public comment, just saying stuff that wasn't on the, just coming to the microphone to say whatever that was on their mind, and then it turned into a refereeing match. And this was an unusual amount of people wanting to be here, but on a normal night, when we don't have that many people here, it felt like we were spending a lot of time telling people, no, you can't talk right now because that's not on the agenda. So I think that decision was made to make the meeting more effective. It's certainly something we could revisit, I think, but that was the reason.
Everybody has their differing opinions, and we all come from different spending districts. I just know sitting on 9 years on my board, that's how we did it. And there are times when you had to stop the comment when you have a busy public. Just a thought.
We could take it up and talk about it in policy.
I would support it. I mean, I feel that even if we have those on the agenda, they can be short and quick. If there's nobody that has any comments, we just move on.
Any other note, Roger?
So I know we've talked about this before, but for new business and old business, weren't we going to keep a list on the sheet so we know what new business is and we know what old business is until we close it out? In which case, then we remove it. So I would like to ask that we start that again so that we kind of keep it on the list so that for anything that requires us to revisit it, we don't forget about it.
Yeah, but Roger, we have that. It's a spreadsheet that's in the board resources folder, and I just looked at it yesterday, and it's updated with the. Yeah. So, there's a tab of closed out items that have been addressed, and then there's a tab of open items. A couple of which date back to earlier this year, but 2 or 3 of them are from last month.
I concur with that, but going back to Roger about the closing of the items. So one of the items was that I brought up about HIV training, and I know we were going to do it, but we haven't done it. So do you know,
I thought we'd send something out to the board this month. We were planning on doing something in January when we have our new members, and we're looking into a board retreat.
Okay.
I did send an email out on that earlier this month.
I didn't see it with the HIV training.
It was in the same email as the training.
Okay.
Yeah, it addressed training.
So that goes to new business, if I could bring up, that I wanted to propose as a board that we consider doing a half-day retreat. I'm not sure if January is the right month or February. It's an off. It's not going to be the same day as our board meeting, but some boards do it for various reasons. We can do it to better clarify our role as board members and also as a team building exercise. So I'd like to just propose that to the board after the new slate is here. So I don't know again if that's late January or early February to do that.
I would think it makes more sense at the end of the school year. Typically, I've seen it done on the board at the end of the year because then they're looking toward their board goals and they have the retreat in the summer, so then they can decide what are their board goals going to be for the following year. Just a thought.
So we have a lot of training. We have a lot, like we have the HIB training we could do. There's also obviously issues within the board that we can address and start the new year and the new board on a good note, on a positive note.
But to that, can we piggyback on the HIB training with as PD with the staff? I mean, when
with the
staff
what?
I'm sorry, Rich. I think we talked about this. I brought that up about HIB. Can we the HIB training when the staff is being?
Well, we could, but it was brought up after staff was already trained. It was the beginning of the school year.
But moving forward.
Moving forward, we could do that. Sure,
It
we
makes
can invite
sense
the board
if you're
to
already giving it to the staff. We should piggyback on that.
Sure, we could offer that as an option, but it's whether or not board members would be able to come. It's typically done during the day, and so with work obligations, that might be difficult for some board members. So I think it's important to offer it to everybody so that they all have an opportunity to participate.
Anyone else with new or old business?
Item I'd like to bring up. So we heard tonight, I mean, we don't really see it directly, but that there was the librarian has received not a lot of support, maybe some opposite of support from the community, and some emails to her and things like that. is it possible, at least to, so the board, got a lot of emails explicitly expressing support for her actions. We heard them today too. Wonder how we might be able to make her aware that there is strong community support for her expressed through, letters to the board. I don't think we could. I'm a guess that we couldn't send those to her without permission of the writers. Perhaps we could ask for permission. It's a. I feel really bad that she herself is getting, hate mail.
Yeah, I know the building administration has been working with her to try to, if there is anything that is threatening, harassing, they're addressing it with through the administrative standpoint, and also if need be, law enforcement if it's harassment and intimidation. So I know they have worked with her, and I know they've expressed that we have been getting a lot of positive emails as well. But if we wanted to formalize that some way, I can. But it's my understanding that those have been shared. Like the views and opinions of those on that side have been shared as well.
Okay. So you think she's cognizant of the amount of support that she's getting some
yeah, I mean, I'll personally follow up. I'll personally follow up with her if you'd like.
That'd be great. I think it's a great idea.
What about the idea of like some resolution of support, just from the board, like just supporting staff, and in particular, Mrs. Hickson. I mean, I don't know how we could write that. I don't know if that's like something we can do or not, but it seems like some sort of statement that, irrespective of how anybody individually feels about the issue, it's a statement of support for a professional that's part of our team here, right? part of our staff.
I mean, I'll chime in, and all these are heartfelt comments. And Rich made a comment at the beginning of the meeting, in part specifically, not mentioning her, but mentioning our media specialists by title, and you heard the reaction in the audience. So I know there's an administrative effort to support her. I think I'd like to talk to the administration about whether or not a resolution would be appropriate, just thinking context. And there are times when public comes out and makes negative comments about various individuals. Have we done that before? Is this, is this something that we want to consider now? And anyway, I think that it's certainly something that is relevant to talk about. She is supported. All staff is supported. Obviously, but I would suggest that give us some time to talk to the administration about it.
Okay.
John, can I ask that you also, if there's other suggestions that are better than that, just let us know, as a board, how can we not only support her, but if this ever happens again.
Yep.
Yes, John. Yes, Ron.
Any other old or new business? Good. All right. I'd like to call for a motion and a second to adopt the attached Resolution 102621-2 for executive session to discuss matters falling under categories 4, 7, and 8 as reflected in the attached resolution. The board expects to be in executive session for approximately an hour and will return to public section after action, and return to public session, action will be taken.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Robin, Rachel?
Who's the motion?
Robin,
Rob.
Any opposed? Or in executive session? I call for a motion and a second to reconvene for reconvene a public session.
Second.
Tara and
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstained. Motion carries. Call for new business. Is there any new business that anybody would like to discuss at this point? Seeing none. I call for a motion and a second to approve agenda items 20.1 through 20.3, including the hand carries if provided. This will be a roll call vote.
Shelley.
Yeah.
Ms. Bonomi?
Yes.
Mr. Chapman?
Yes.
Ms. Crisologo? Mr. Farbanish? Ms. Vince? Ms. Hoffman? Mr. Kirchberger?
Yes.
Ms. McLaughlin?
Yes.
Mr. Mueller?
Yes.
Ms. Salino?
Yes, except for I abstain on 3.1.1.
What was that?
Which one was that again?
3.1.1.
And Mr. Straight? Ms. Beato?
Yes.
Motion carries.
So was that an abstention or an
Abstention.
No, an yes to everything, abstention, 3.1.1.
Got it.
I hate these math.
Can I call for a motion and a second to adjourn?
Motion.
Second.
Rob and Rachel?
All in agreement.
Rob and Rachel. Yeah, Rob and Rachel.